Sarah Martinez never imagined that one doctor's appointment would change her entire world. She sat in the waiting room of Dr. Wilson's clinic, nervously fidgeting with her purse strap while her husband Michael paced back and forth near the water cooler. They had been trying to have a baby for 3 years, and, after 2 miscarriages, this pregnancy felt like a precious gift they were afraid to lose. When the ultrasound technician called her name, Sarah's heart pounded so hard she could hear it in her ears. The gel felt cold against her still flat belly as the technician moved the wand around, searching for signs of life. The room fell silent except for the quiet humming of the machine. Then, suddenly, the technician's face broke into a wide smile. "Well, this is interesting," she said, adjusting the screen so Sarah and Michael could see better. "Do you see those 2 little spots there? Congratulations, you're having twins." Sarah's mouth fell open, and Michael nearly knocked over a tray of medical instruments as he rushed to her side. Twins? They had barely prepared themselves mentally for 1 baby, and now they were going to have 2? The technician continued her examination, and, after what felt like forever, she announced the gender. "Both babies appear to be girls. Identical twin girls." The drive home was a blur of excited chatter and nervous laughter. Sarah kept touching her belly, trying to imagine 2 tiny babies growing inside her. Michael was already making mental calculations about cribs, car seats, and college funds. When they arrived at their small 2-bedroom apartment, reality started to sink in. "We need to make a list," Sarah said, settling into their worn but comfortable couch. "We need to figure out what we absolutely must have for 2 babies." Michael grabbed a notepad from the kitchen drawer and sat beside her. "Okay, let's start with the basics. 2 of everything, right?" But, as they began brainstorming, they realized it wasn't that simple. Some things they would need 2 of, but other items could be shared. Their budget was tight since Sarah worked as a part-time librarian and Michael was a mechanic at a local garage. They couldn't afford to buy everything new, and they definitely couldn't afford to buy duplicates of expensive items unnecessarily. Sarah's sister Emma came over the next evening with a stack of parenting magazines and a notebook full of advice. Emma had 3 children of her own and was considered the family expert on all things baby-related. "The first thing you need to understand," Emma said, spreading the magazines across the coffee table, "is that twin babies have different needs than single babies. They'll be smaller when they're born, they might need special feeding schedules, and you'll be dealing with double the diapers, double the crying, and double the sleepless nights." Sarah felt overwhelmed just thinking about it. What are the absolute essentials we can't do without? Emma opened her notebook and began reading. 2 car seats, obviously. You can't leave the hospital without them. 2 cribs or 1 crib and 1 bassinet to start. Double the clothes in newborn and 0 to 3 month sizes because premature twins often need smaller sizes. A double stroller, though you might want to wait and see how big the babies are first. Michael was writing furiously, and the list was already filling up the page. What about feeding? If Sarah breastfeeds, do we need bottles? With twins, even if you plan to breastfeed exclusively, you'll want bottles and formula as backup, Emma explained. Sometimes one baby feeds better than the other, or you might need help with night feedings. A breast pump is essential for twins because you'll need to maintain your milk supply for 2 babies. Over the next few weeks, Sarah and Michael threw themselves into research mode. They visited baby stores, compared prices online, and asked every parent they knew for advice. Sarah joined several online forums for mothers of twins, where she learned about things she never would have considered. One evening, while browsing a twin parenting website, Sarah discovered that many items marketed as essential for babies were actually not necessary at all. A wipe warmer, for example, was nice to have but not crucial. Expensive matching nursery sets were beautiful but not practical when dealing with 2 babies who might have different sleep schedules. The more research they did, the more they realized that preparing for twins was like preparing for a small army. They would need industrial quantities of diapers, wipes, and burp cloths. Sarah's friend Jessica, who worked at a daycare, suggested buying everything in bulk and storing it in labeled containers. "Think of your house as a baby supply warehouse," Jessica laughed during one of their planning sessions. "You don't want to run out of anything in the middle of the night when both babies are crying." Michael started making trips to warehouse stores, buying cases of formula, boxes of diapers, and packages of onesies. Their spare bedroom began to look like a small retail store, with shelves lined with baby supplies and a growing collection of cribs, high chairs, and bouncy seats. But the most important discovery came from Sarah's online research about premature babies. Since twins are often born early and smaller than single babies, they would need special considerations. Preemie clothes, smaller diapers, and potentially specialized feeding equipment. Sarah added these items to their ever-growing list, feeling both prepared and terrified. As her belly grew bigger and rounder, Sarah began to understand why preparation was so crucial. Simple tasks like grocery shopping became exhausting, and she couldn't imagine trying to shop for baby supplies while caring for two newborns. Michael took over most of the shopping duties, armed with detailed lists and price comparisons Sarah had researched from the comfort of their couch. The couple also realized they needed to prepare their home environment for twins. Baby-proofing would be twice as important since they would have two curious toddlers getting into everything at the same time. They started collecting safety gates, outlet covers, and cabinet locks, storing them for future use. One of the most surprising discoveries was how much laundry two babies would create. Emma warned them that they would be washing clothes constantly, so having plenty of extra outfits was crucial. Sarah started buying simple, easy-to-wash clothes rather than fancy outfits that required special care. The nursery planning became a major project. They decided to paint the room a cheerful yellow color that would work for any babies, and Michael spent weekends assembling furniture and installing shelves. Sarah organized everything by size and type, creating a system that would allow them to quickly find what they needed during those middle-of-the-night emergencies. As they prepared for the arrival of their twin girls, Sarah and Michael began to understand that having twins wasn't just about having twice as much stuff. It was about being organized, prepared, and flexible. They learned that some items were absolutely essential, while others were nice luxuries they could add later if needed. The most important lesson they learned was that every twin pregnancy and every set of babies was different. What worked for one family might not work for another. They prepared as best they could, but they also accepted that they would need to adapt and adjust their plans as they learned what their specific babies needed. With 2 months left in her pregnancy, Sarah felt as ready as any first-time mother of twins could feel. Their apartment was organized, their supplies were stocked, and their hearts were full of anticipation for the two little girls who would soon turn their quiet life into a beautiful, chaotic adventure. #must-have for baby girl twins story part 2. The contractions started at 3 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday in September, 6 weeks before Sarah's due date. She had been experiencing what she thought were practice contractions for days, but these felt different. Stronger. More urgent. Michael was instantly awake when Sarah gripped his arm, her face twisted in pain. "This is it," she whispered, trying to breathe through another contraction. "Call Dr. Wilson." The next few hours were a blur of phone calls, hurried packing, and a tense drive to the hospital through empty streets. Sarah clutched the hospital bag they had packed weeks earlier, grateful they had prepared so far in advance. Inside were all the essentials they had researched: going-home outfits for two babies in both newborn and preemie sizes, extra clothes for Sarah, nursing pads, and all the paperwork they might need. At the hospital, everything moved quickly. Dr. Wilson confirmed that the babies were coming today, whether they were ready or not. At 34 weeks, the twins would be considered moderately premature, which meant they might need special care in the neonatal intensive care unit. "Don't worry," Dr. Wilson assured them as nurses prepared Sarah for delivery. 34-week babies usually do very well. They might just need a little extra help with feeding and breathing at first. Emma arrived at the hospital just as Sarah was being wheeled into the delivery room. She had brought the infant car seats, knowing that the hospital wouldn't release the babies without them. Michael had installed them weeks earlier, practicing until he could secure them perfectly every time. At 10:47 a.m., Sofia Martinez entered the world weighing 4 pounds, 3 ounces. 2 minutes later, her sister Isabella followed at 4 pounds, 1 ounce. Both babies cried immediately, which Dr. Wilson said was an excellent sign. They were small but healthy, with no apparent complications. The next few hours were emotional chaos. Both babies were taken to the NICU for observation and monitoring, which was standard procedure for premature twins. Sarah and Michael could only peek at them through the clear plastic incubators, watching their tiny chests rise and fall with the help of small breathing monitors. The NICU nurses were incredibly helpful, teaching Sarah and Michael about the special needs of premature babies. The twins needed to eat every 2 hours around the clock, but they were too small and weak to breastfeed effectively at first. This meant Sarah would need to pump breast milk while the babies learned to bottle feed with special premature infant formulas. The good news is they're strong for their gestational age, explained Nancy, their primary NICU nurse. They should be able to come home in a week or two, once they gain a little weight and can maintain their body temperature on their own. During those first days in the hospital, Sarah and Michael learned just how crucial their preparation had been. The preemie clothes they had bought fit perfectly, while the newborn sizes would have been far too large. The breast pump they had purchased was essential since Sarah needed to establish her milk supply for babies who couldn't nurse yet. Michael made daily trips between the hospital and home, bringing fresh clothes for Sarah and supplies for the babies. Each day, he checked off items from their carefully planned list. The hospital provided basic care, but parents were expected to bring their own diapers, clothes, and feeding supplies. On day 4, the nurses allowed Sarah and Michael to try feeding the babies themselves. It was harder than they had imagined. Sophia took to the bottle easily, drinking her formula with enthusiasm. Isabella was more challenging, falling asleep mid-feeding and needing constant encouragement to finish her meals. This is why you need extra bottles and burp cloths for twins, Nancy explained as Isabella spit up all over Michael's shirt for the 3rd time that morning. One baby might be a neat eater while the other makes a mess of everything. You'll go through twice as many clothes and cleaning supplies as you expect. The experience taught them that even identical twins were individuals with their own personalities and needs. Sophia was alert and active, crying loudly when she wanted attention. Isabella was quieter and more sensitive, easily startled by sudden noises or bright lights. After 6 days in the NICU, Dr. Wilson declared both babies ready to go home. They had gained weight steadily and could maintain their body temperature in regular clothes. Sarah felt a mixture of excitement and terror as they prepared for discharge. Taking care of 2 premature babies in the controlled environment of the hospital was one thing, but bringing them home to their apartment felt overwhelming. The discharge process took hours. Each baby needed a final examination, and the nurses went through detailed instructions about feeding schedules, medication timing, and warning signs to watch for. Sarah and Michael also had to demonstrate that they could properly install and use the car seats before they were allowed to leave. The drive home was the most nerve-wracking 20 minutes of their lives. Both babies slept peacefully in their car seats, but Sarah and Michael checked them at every red light. They had practiced this route several times, timing it to avoid heavy traffic and planning the smoothest possible ride. Walking into their apartment with 2 babies felt surreal. Everything looked exactly the same, but their lives had changed completely. The nursery they had so carefully prepared suddenly seemed inadequate for the reality of caring for 2 tiny humans who needed attention every 2 hours. The first night home was brutal. Just as Sarah had fed and changed Sophia, Isabella would wake up crying. By the time Isabella was settled, Sophia was awake again. Michael took the midnight and 4 a.m. feedings while Sarah handled the 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. shifts, but they were both exhausted beyond anything they had experienced before. This is why people say to sleep when the babies sleep, Sarah told Michael the next morning as they shared coffee and tried to function on 3 hours of broken sleep. But when do you sleep when you have 2 babies who never sleep at the same time? Emma came over that second day with a care package and some hard-earned wisdom. The first few weeks are survival mode, she said, taking Isabella so Sarah could shower for the first time in days. Don't worry about keeping a perfect house or cooking elaborate meals. Focus on feeding the babies, feeding yourself, and getting whatever sleep you can. The supplies they had stockpiled proved to be lifesavers. Having cases of diapers meant they never ran out during those middle-of-the-night changes. The industrial quantities of burp cloths meant they always had clean ones available, even when laundry piled up. The multiple bottles allowed one parent to feed one baby while the other sterilized bottles for the next feeding. But they also discovered items they hadn't expected to need. Premature babies got cold easily, so they needed extra blankets and warm clothes. The twins also needed more frequent diaper changes than full-term babies, going through nearly 20 diapers per day between them. Sarah's breast pump became her most essential tool. With 2 babies to feed every 2 hours, pumping allowed her to maintain her milk supply while Michael helped with feedings. They developed a system where Sarah would pump while Michael fed both babies bottles of previously pumped milk or formula. The double stroller they had debated buying turned out to be crucial for doctor appointments. At 2 weeks old, both babies needed checkups, and carrying 2 car seats plus a diaper bag was physically impossible. The stroller allowed them to transport both babies safely while keeping their hands free for all the supplies they needed to bring. One of their biggest challenges was keeping track of which baby had eaten when and how much. With sleep-deprived brains, it was impossible to remember who had last been fed or changed. They created a simple chart where they recorded every feeding, diaper change, and nap for both babies. This system saved them from the confusion of wondering why a baby was crying or whether it was time for the next feeding. As the weeks passed, Sarah and Michael began to understand the rhythm of life with twins. It was exhausting and overwhelming, but it was also incredibly rewarding. Watching Sophia and Isabella grow and develop their distinct personalities made all the sleepless nights and endless laundry worthwhile. The most important lesson they learned was that preparation had been crucial, but flexibility was even more important. Their carefully planned schedules went out the window when one baby was fussy or sick. The supplies they had stockpiled were essential, but so was the willingness to adapt their plans when reality didn't match their expectations. By the time the twins were 2 months old, Sarah and Michael felt like they were finally getting the hang of twin parenthood. They had learned what items were truly essential and what things they could live without. Most importantly, they had learned that raising twins was not just about having twice the stuff, but about having twice the love, twice the joy, and twice the reasons to appreciate every small moment of their chaotic but wonderful new life. #must-have for baby girl twins story part 3. By the time Sophia and Isabella turned 6 months old, Sarah and Michael had become experts in the art of twin management. Their small apartment had been transformed into an efficiently organized baby care center, with every item having its designated place and purpose. What had started as overwhelming chaos had evolved into a well-coordinated routine that worked for their family. The morning routine was like a carefully choreographed dance. Sarah would wake up at 6 a.m. and pump breast milk while Michael prepared bottles. By the time the babies stirred awake around 6:30, both parents were ready with warm bottles and fresh diapers. They had learned to work as a team, each taking one baby through the morning feeding, changing, and dressing routine. Sophia had grown into an energetic baby who loved to kick and grab at everything within reach. She required constant entertainment and stimulation, always looking around for something new to explore. Isabella remained the quieter twin, content to observe the world around her with serious, thoughtful expressions. Their different personalities meant they needed different approaches to care and different types of toys and activities. The high chairs they had purchased became essential when the babies started eating solid foods at 5 months. Initially, Sarah had worried about buying 2 expensive high chairs, thinking they might be able to manage with one. But feeding 2 babies who were ready to eat at the same time proved impossible with only 1 chair. Isabella was a neat, careful eater who took small bites and rarely made messes. Sophia, on the other hand, treated every meal like an art project, spreading pureed vegetables across her face, hair, and everything within arm's reach. "I never realized how much laundry babies could create," Sarah told her friend Jessica during one of their phone conversations. "Between the spit-up, the food messes, and the occasional diaper disasters, I'm doing laundry every single day." The washing machine ran constantly, cycling through loads of tiny clothes, burp cloths, bibs, and blankets. Sarah had learned to buy clothes in simple, easy-care fabrics that could withstand frequent washing. The fancy dresses and delicate outfits that well-meaning relatives gave as gifts stayed in the closet, saved for special occasions that rarely came. Sleep schedules remained the biggest challenge. While some twin parents were lucky enough to have babies who slept at the same time, Sophia and Isabella seemed determined to take turns being awake. Just when one would settle down for a nap, the other would wake up crying. Sarah and Michael had tried every suggestion they found online: synchronized feeding schedules, blackout curtains, white noise machines, and even playing classical music during nap times. Dr. Peterson, their pediatrician, reassured them during a routine checkup that this was normal for many twins. Some babies naturally sync up with each other, while others seem to prefer taking shifts, she explained while examining Isabella's ears.
The good news is that by their first birthday, most twins do settle into more predictable sleep patterns.
The parents had learned to maximize every moment of quiet. When both babies napped simultaneously, which happened maybe once a week, Sarah and Michael would either sleep themselves or tackle essential household tasks. They had given up on keeping their apartment magazine perfect, instead focusing on keeping it clean and functional. Their social life had changed dramatically. Going anywhere with two babies required military-level planning and preparation. The diaper bag had evolved into a massive tote that contained enough supplies for any emergency: extra clothes for both babies, multiple diapers, wipes, bottles, formula, toys, blankets, and backup pacifiers. Simple errands like grocery shopping became major expeditions. The double stroller barely fit through some store aisles, and loading groceries while managing two babies required careful strategy. Sarah had learned to shop online for most household items, having groceries and baby supplies delivered whenever possible. But there were also unexpected joys. When Sophia first smiled at 8 weeks old, Isabella smiled back at her sister as if they were sharing a secret joke. When Isabella learned to roll over, Sophia watched intently and mastered the skill within days. The twins seemed to motivate each other to reach developmental milestones, creating their own little world of communication and interaction. Michael had become an expert at bottle preparation and feeding logistics. He could prepare 4 bottles simultaneously while keeping one eye on both babies, a skill that impressed even Emma when she visited. "You two have this down to a science," she observed, watching Michael efficiently organize the evening feeding routine. The financial aspect of raising twins had proven to be every bit as challenging as they had expected. Diapers alone cost them nearly $200 per month, and that was buying in bulk at warehouse stores. Formula, when supplementing breast milk, added another significant expense. They had learned to accept hand-me-down clothes gratefully and to shop consignment stores for larger items like bouncy seats and activity centers. Sarah had started a small blog documenting their twin journey, partly to keep distant relatives updated but also to connect with other parents of multiples. Through online communities, she had learned valuable tips and tricks that no parenting book had mentioned. Other twin parents shared advice about everything from managing car seat logistics to finding clothes that could grow with rapidly changing baby sizes. One of the most helpful discoveries came from another twin mom who recommended buying identical clothes in different colors. This way, the babies could still have individual identities while simplifying laundry sorting and ensuring that both girls had appropriate clothes for any weather or activity. Sarah started buying everything in sets, pink for Sophia and purple for Isabella, making it easy to keep track of whose clothes were whose. The babies' different personalities became more pronounced as they grew. Sophia was the extrovert, smiling at strangers and loving to be the center of attention. She reached for toys aggressively and cried loudly when she wanted something. Isabella was more observant, studying new people carefully before warming up to them. She played quietly with toys for longer periods but was also more sensitive to changes in routine or environment. These personality differences affected what items they needed. Sophia required more stimulating toys with bright colors and interesting sounds. Isabella preferred softer, quieter toys that she could examine and manipulate at her own pace. What worked perfectly for one twin might completely fail to interest the other. As winter approached, Sarah and Michael faced new challenges. 2 babies meant twice the winter gear: snowsuits, warm hats, mittens, and boots. Getting both babies bundled up for outdoor excursions took so long that sometimes they decided it was easier to stay inside. The double stroller needed weather protection, and car seat covers became essential for protecting the babies from cold air during trips to and from the car. The holidays brought both joy and stress. Relatives wanted to visit and meet the babies, but managing guests while maintaining feeding and nap schedules required careful coordination. Sarah learned to be more assertive about protecting the baby's routines, politely asking visitors to work around feeding times rather than trying to accommodate everyone's preferred visiting schedules. Gift giving became complicated as well. Well-meaning relatives often gave individual gifts, not considering that twins might fight over toys or feel left out if one received something the other didn't. Sarah started creating wish lists that emphasized items that could be shared or enjoyed together, steering family members toward practical gifts like clothes or books. The apartment was showing signs of being outgrown.
Baby gear seemed to multiply beyond what their small space could accommodate. 2 high chairs, 2 bouncy seats, double the toys, and mountains of clothes had filled every available corner. Sarah and Michael started looking at larger apartments, realizing they would need more space as the twins became mobile. Both babies were showing signs of wanting to crawl, which meant baby-proofing would need to be implemented soon. With 2 curious babies exploring simultaneously, child safety would become even more critical. Every cabinet, electrical outlet, and stair would need protection, and keeping track of 2 mobile babies would require constant vigilance. Despite the challenges, Sarah and Michael couldn't imagine their lives any other way. Watching Sophia and Isabella grow and interact with each other brought daily moments of wonder and joy. They had learned that raising twins was about more than just doubling everything. It was about creating systems, maintaining flexibility, and finding joy in the chaos of their beautifully complicated life. #must-have for baby girl twins. Story part. For the morning of Sophia and Isabella's first birthday arrived with all the chaos and celebration that had become normal in the Martinez household. Sarah woke up early, looking at the sleeping babies in their cribs, marveling at how much had changed since that overwhelming day when they brought home 2 tiny premature infants who seemed too fragile for the world. Now, at 12 months old, both girls were walking, babbling constantly, and getting into everything they could reach. Sophia had taken her first steps at 10 months, bold and fearless as always, while Isabella had waited until 11 months, carefully observing her sister's technique before attempting it herself. The apartment Michael and Sarah had worried about outgrowing was now officially too small. Toys covered every surface, and the babies had claimed the living room as their personal playground. Safety gates blocked the kitchen and bathroom entrances, outlet covers protected every electrical socket, and cabinet locks secured anything that might be dangerous or breakable. "Remember when we thought we had too much baby stuff?" Michael laughed as he navigated around a fortress of colorful blocks that the twins had built in the hallway. "Now I can't imagine how we managed with so little space for everything they need." The birthday party planning had been an adventure in itself. Sarah had learned that celebrating with twins meant everything needed to be doubled and carefully coordinated. 2 high chairs meant 2 sets of party decorations. 2 birthday girls meant ensuring that both felt equally special and celebrated. Emma had helped with the planning, bringing her experience from years of children's parties. "The key is to keep it simple but fair," she advised while helping Sarah wrap identical gifts in different colored paper. "At this age, they won't remember the details, but they will sense if one gets more attention than the other." The guest list included family members who had supported them throughout the challenging first year, friends who had helped with everything from grocery shopping to babysitting, and a few other parents of twins they had met through local parenting groups. The living room was decorated with balloons in pink and purple, the twins' signature colors that had made organizing their belongings so much easier over the past year. As guests arrived, Sarah reflected on how much their support system had grown. Initially, she and Michael had felt overwhelmed and isolated, struggling to manage twin babies with just the 2 of them. But, over the months, they had built a network of family, friends, and other parents who understood the unique challenges and joys of raising multiples. The gift opening was entertaining chaos. Sophia grabbed at wrapping paper enthusiastically, more interested in the colorful packaging than the toys inside. Isabella carefully examined each item before deciding whether it met her approval. Both girls had developed strong preferences for different types of toys and activities, making gift selection both easier and more complicated. Among the presents were practical items that Sarah and Michael genuinely needed as the twins entered toddlerhood. Convertible car seats that would accommodate growing children, a wagon for neighborhood walks, and art supplies for creative activities. These weren't the cute, tiny baby items they had focused on a year earlier, but rather tools for active, curious toddlers. Dr. Peterson had been right about sleep schedules improving as the babies got older. By 10 months, both Sophia and Isabella were sleeping through the night most of the time, though they still occasionally woke each other up when one had nightmares or wasn't feeling well. The synchronized sleep schedule had been a game-changer for Sarah and Michael's relationship and mental health. The feeding challenges had evolved as well. Both babies now ate most of the same foods as their parents, though they still had individual preferences and eating styles. Sophia would try anything and often asked for more, while Isabella was pickier and preferred familiar foods prepared in specific ways. Meal planning required considering both girls' tastes and ensuring balanced nutrition for rapidly growing toddlers. Sarah had successfully breastfed both babies for 11 months, supplementing with formula when needed. The decision to wean had been bittersweet but practical, as both girls were eating solid foods enthusiastically and seemed ready for the independence. The breast pump that had been so essential during their early months was finally retired, marking the end of one phase of their journey. The daycare search had been another major milestone. With Sarah planning to return to work part-time, finding quality childcare for twins had required extensive research and planning. They had visited several facilities, comparing programs that could accommodate the needs of two children with different personalities and developmental patterns. The daycare they eventually chose specialized in caring for multiples and understood the unique dynamics of twin relationships. The staff was trained to encourage individual development while supporting the special bond between siblings. Both Sophia and Isabella had thrived in the social environment, learning to interact with other children while maintaining their close connection to each other. Financially, the first year had been every bit as challenging as they had anticipated. The initial investment in essential baby gear had been substantial, but many items had proven their worth over months of constant use. The high-quality car seats, stroller, and cribs had withstood daily wear and tear while keeping both babies safe and comfortable. The ongoing monthly expenses had been significant as well. Diapers, formula, childcare, and medical expenses for two children created a budget strain that required careful planning and occasional sacrifice. But Sarah and Michael had learned to prioritize spending on items that truly mattered while finding creative ways to save on less essential purchases. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Sarah looked around at their transformed living space. What had once been a quiet apartment for two adults was now clearly the home of a family with active toddlers. Every room showed evidence of the twins' presence, toys tucked into corners, safety equipment protecting dangerous areas, and photos documenting a year of incredible growth and change. The twins' relationship had developed into something beautiful and complex. They played together, fought over toys, comforted each other when upset, and seemed to communicate in their own special language that only they understood. Sophia's bold, adventurous nature balanced Isabella's careful, thoughtful approach to new experiences. Michael had become an expert at managing twin logistics, able to get both girls dressed, fed, and ready for outings with remarkable efficiency. Sarah had developed an intuitive understanding of each baby's individual needs while maintaining fairness and consistency in her parenting approach. The blog Sarah had started during those overwhelming early months had grown into a resource that other twin parents regularly consulted. She had documented everything from practical tips about organizing baby supplies to emotional insights about the challenges and rewards of raising multiples. The online community had become a source of ongoing support and friendship. Looking toward the future, Sarah and Michael knew they faced new challenges as the twins became more mobile and independent. Toddlerhood would bring different safety concerns, educational decisions, and social dynamics. But they also felt confident in their ability to adapt and grow with their daughter's changing needs. The essential items list that had seemed so overwhelming during pregnancy had evolved into practical wisdom about what truly mattered in daily life with twins. Some expensive purchases had proven worthless, while unexpected items had become indispensable. The most important lesson was that preparation mattered, but flexibility and willingness to adjust course were even more valuable. As they tucked Sophia and Isabella into their cribs that night, surrounded by new birthday toys and wearing matching pajamas that grandmother had given them, Sarah and Michael felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They had survived the first year of twin parenthood, learning lessons that no book or class could have taught them. The apartment might be too small, the laundry basket might always be full, and the budget might be stretched thin, but their family was healthy, happy, and growing stronger every day. The must-have items for twin baby girls had turned out to be less about specific products and more about patience, organization, community support, and an endless capacity for love and adaptation. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and discoveries as Sophia and Isabella continued to grow and explore their world. But tonight, with both babies sleeping peacefully and their first birthday celebration complete, Sarah and Michael felt ready for whatever adventures lay ahead in their continuing journey as parents of twins. #must-have for baby girl twins. Story Part 5. 18 months after the twins were born, Sarah Martinez stood in the doorway of their new 3-bedroom house,
watching Sophia and Isabella play in their spacious new playroom. The move had been necessary as the girls became more active toddlers, needing space to run, climb, and explore safely. The small apartment that had seemed overwhelming with baby gear now felt like a distant memory compared to their current reality. The house hunting process had been an adventure with two energetic toddlers in tow. Real estate agents quickly learned to schedule viewings during nap times, and Sarah and Michael became experts at evaluating homes through the lens of twin safety and functionality. They needed a layout that would allow them to supervise both girls simultaneously, outdoor space for active play, and enough storage for the ever-expanding collection of toys, clothes, and equipment that came with raising twins. Moving day had required the kind of military precision that only parents of multiples could appreciate. Michael coordinated the movers while Sarah managed both girls at her mother's house, keeping them entertained and out of the way during the chaos. The transition was easier than expected, partly because 18-month-old twins adapt quickly to new environments, and partly because Sarah and Michael had become masters at maintaining routines regardless of circumstances. The new house allowed each twin to have her own bedroom for the first time, though they often ended up sleeping together anyway. Sophia would climb out of her crib and toddle to Isabella's room, where she would somehow manage to squeeze into the already occupied crib. Sarah and Michael found them curled up together most mornings, despite starting the night in separate rooms. Sophia's adventurous personality had become even more pronounced as she grew. She climbed on everything, tested every boundary, and approached new experiences with fearless enthusiasm. Her favorite activities included stacking blocks as high as possible before knocking them down, chasing the neighbor's cat around the backyard, and trying to feed herself with utensils that were still too advanced for her motor skills. Isabella had developed into a thoughtful observer who preferred quieter activities but was surprisingly determined when she wanted something. She would sit for long periods examining books, carefully placing puzzle pieces, or arranging her stuffed animals in elaborate tea party scenarios. When she decided she wanted to master a new skill, like using a spoon or putting on her own shoes, she would practice with remarkable persistence until she succeeded. The differences in their personalities meant that toy shopping had become an exercise in balance and strategy. Sophia needed toys that could withstand rough play and provide physical challenges, while Isabella preferred items that encouraged careful manipulation and imaginative play. Sarah learned to buy things that could appeal to both girls or to ensure that each twin had something suited to her individual interests. Mealtime had evolved from the carefully scheduled bottle feedings of infancy into chaotic but entertaining affairs. Both girls insisted on feeding themselves, though their success rates varied dramatically. Sophia attacked her food with enthusiasm, often wearing more than she consumed. Isabella ate with careful deliberation, examining each bite before deciding whether it met her standards. The high chairs they had agonized over purchasing during pregnancy had proven to be one of their best investments. 18 months later, they were still using them daily, though now they were positioned to allow the twins to see each other during meals. The girls had developed a game where they would take turns dropping food and watching the other's reaction, much to their parents' exasperation. Language development had become one of the most fascinating aspects of watching the twins grow. They had developed their own communication system that supplemented the English words they were learning. Sophia would babble excitedly while Isabella listened intently, then Isabella would respond with her own series of sounds that seemed to convey specific meaning to her sister. Both girls were saying recognizable words now, though their vocabularies reflected their personalities. Sophia's first clear words were up, go, and more, all action-oriented demands. Isabella's early vocabulary included book, soft, and please, reflecting her more contemplative nature and better understanding of social conventions. The pediatrician was impressed with both girls' development during their 18-month checkup. Twins often motivate each other to reach milestones, Dr. Peterson explained while watching Sophia demonstrate her climbing skills on the examination table. They learn from observing each other, but they also develop at their own individual pace. Potty training loomed as the next major challenge on the horizon. Sarah had been reading books and consulting other twin parents about strategies for managing this transition with two children simultaneously. Some parents recommended training one twin at a time, while others suggested a coordinated approach. Given Sophia and Isabella's different personalities and developmental patterns, Sarah suspected they would need an individualized strategy for each girl. The social aspects of raising twins continued to surprise and delight everyone around them. At the local playground, other children were fascinated by the identical girls who seemed to operate as a team. Sophia would fearlessly attempt the climbing equipment while Isabella watched carefully, then, Isabella would follow the path her sister had tested, often with better technique and fewer tumbles. Other parents frequently approached Sarah and Michael with questions about twin management, treating them as experts on multiple parenting. The reality was that they still felt like they were learning something new every day, but they had developed confidence in their ability to adapt to whatever challenges arose. The financial impact of raising twins had stabilized somewhat as the girls moved beyond the expensive infant supply phase. They no longer needed formula, bottles, or newborn-sized diapers in massive quantities. However, new expenses had emerged: shoes for rapidly growing feet, toddler-proofing supplies for the larger house, and enrichment activities appropriate for their developmental stage. Sarah had returned to work part-time when the twins turned 15 months old, finding a position at the local library that offered flexible hours and understanding supervisors. The transition had been emotionally difficult but financially necessary. The childcare costs for 2 toddlers were substantial, but Sarah's income helped offset the ongoing expenses of raising twins while providing her with adult interaction and professional fulfillment. The daycare had become an important part of the twins' social development. They were learning to interact with other children, follow group routines, and develop independence from each other. The teachers reported that while the girls often gravitated toward each other during free play, they were also forming individual friendships and showing distinct preferences for different activities. Michael had taken on more household management responsibilities as Sarah returned to work. He had become expert at grocery shopping with 2 toddlers, managing their nap schedules, and coordinating medical appointments. His mechanical skills proved useful for baby-proofing the new house and assembling the seemingly endless stream of toddler furniture and play equipment. The blog Sarah had started during the twins' infancy had evolved into a comprehensive resource for parents of multiples. She had documented everything from product reviews to developmental milestones, creating a timeline that other parents found helpful for understanding what to expect during each phase of twin development. The online community had become a source of ongoing support and friendship that enriched their entire family's life. Looking back on the journey from pregnancy to toddlerhood, Sarah realized that the most essential items for raising twin girls had not been the specific products they had researched so carefully. While quality car seats, reliable strollers, and adequate supplies were certainly important, the true must-haves were less tangible: flexibility, patience, a sense of humor, and a strong support network. The twins' second birthday was approaching, and Sarah and Michael were already planning the celebration. This time, they felt confident in their ability to manage the logistics while ensuring that both girls felt special and celebrated. They had learned that successful twin parenting was less about having perfect systems and more about being willing to adapt, improvise, and find joy in the beautiful chaos of their daily life. As evening approached and the twins played quietly in their new playroom, Sarah reflected on how much their family had grown and changed. The tiny premature babies who had seemed so fragile were now sturdy, active toddlers with distinct personalities and endless curiosity about the world around them. The overwhelming uncertainty of early parenthood had evolved into confidence born from experience and love deepened by countless shared moments of challenge and triumph. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, and new discoveries as Sophia and Isabella continued to grow and explore their expanding world. But tonight, as they settled into their bedtime routine in their spacious new home, the Martinez family felt grateful for the journey that had brought them to this moment of peace and contentment.